Hi, I'm Jeff Gonzalez, president of Trident Concepts, and I'm here today with AR15.com's Observational Skills Development. All right, so what are we going to be talking about today? So again, we're taking some videos, we're looking at them, and rather than try to critique what they did right or wrong, what we want to take away from these videos is what sort of skills should I be developing? All right, so we got a great video. We're going to show it as we're working through this. And what you basically see is you see another armed robbery. Now, this armed robbery starts off a little bit different than other videos that we've seen in the sense that the victim is a little bit more switched on than previous victims that we've seen. What we see transpire, and there's a couple of trigger points that we want to pay particular attention to. First, obviously he's in some sort of dialogue with some other people, and the suspect's vehicle, which is parked off to the side, immediately starts to reverse and basically block the visible exit that we see, which is the alleyway or the road in front of the camera view. All right, so again, maybe you can make an argument for, hey, I'm just going about my business, going about my life, and I see this type of vehicle behavior. Do I immediately go to guns and immediately start lighting that up, or do I have to wait and see what transpires? You're probably going to have to wait and see. But what does that tell us? That says that we should probably be paying a little bit more attention, which in the case of our victim, he does. So as the vehicle blocks, what happens is the two doors on the passenger side open up and two suspects exit the vehicle. Right? One suspect is clearly the one who is, I don't want to say in charge, but leading in this case. All right, and he starts to move on our victim. And now, as this happens, the victim makes a decision. And this is what I try to get across. All the color code dialogue that you've ever been exposed to is great. It's awesome. It's something that you should study. But what people forget is that each one of those colors denotes action of some sort. You're taking action, right? It just doesn't mean that, oh, I'm aware, I'm alert, I'm paying attention. It means that you are aware, are alert, are paying attention, and you have to do something to better your situation, right? So in this case, our victim recognizes a trigger that to him requires him to take action, and that action is to drop a bag. All right, so let's talk about, again, we see a lot of times our day-to-day occurrences, we have something in our hands. Could be a bag, it could be a small child, it could be just a variety of different items and articles that we might be carrying, all right? So if I have a choice between carrying these articles or items in one hand or the other, I'm gonna probably choose to carry them in my weak hand so that I maintain this strong hand free to perhaps go for my gun. So just think about that. So in this case, our victim has it in his strong hand, and he probably recognizes that he's going to have to go to guns, and he's holding this item, and he just abandons it, right? Drops it right there, doesn't even bother to look at it a second time, it's gone. And that's another important thing to take away. Once you drop it, it's probably out of, it should be out of sight, it's out of mind. All right, so then what we see next is we see the suspect draw what appears to be a gun of some sort, and he brandishes this gun. He doesn't necessarily point it per se in a traditional isosceles type stance, but it's probably enough to intimidate or threaten the victim into going for guns. So our victim recognizes that deadly force justification, and he chooses to go ahead and draw his own gun. Now, let's talk about this draw. One of the things that I always get across to people is, yes, you want to have a nice, clean, efficient, smooth draw stroke, right? That you might want to consider that you do as quickly as you possibly can do it correctly, all right? Now, the other part that often gets overlooked to our draw stroke is the sneaky or slow draw. So let's talk a little bit about why is that valuable? Why does that work in the first place? Well, it works because of normalcy biasness. So in this case, our suspect is accustomed to getting what he wants when he flashes a gun. I mean, why wouldn't he? Most likely, most people are going to, oh, crap, here you go. You got the drop on me. I don't have a lot of options. In this case, the victim is maybe one step ahead. So the brandishing of the gun did not intimidate him as the suspect was expecting. So that was something that fell outside of that normalcy loop that he is accustomed to. So the slow, sneaky draw stroke is perfect in this situation. As a predator, the most viable sense that we have is our ability to pick up furtive or quick movement. Our body, our mind immediately picks that up. It's the easiest and fastest thing, and it's a survival mechanism. It's what allows us to stay, the apex of the predator scales, because we are quickly able to pick up on that fast movement and take it in and take some sort of action. In this case, the reason why this particular scenario worked as well as it did was, again, the combination of the normalcy bias from the suspect and the slow draw from the victim. Now, it's not entirely slow. I'm not talking about pond water moving in the wintertime, but it wasn't furtive and fast and quick, which would have immediately drawn the attention of the suspect, who probably at that point would have started shooting. You're not going to win that fight. A drawn gun, even if it's not pointed at you, is always going to beat a holstered gun. All right? So why did that work? Why was this guy able to get the drop on the suspect? This is why. Or I should say, this is strongly formulating a different outcome than what the suspect was expecting. All right, so the next thing we see is the victim draws and starts to engage strong hand only. And now this is another thing that we probably should be practicing more, which is working a strong hand only draw and strong hand only shooting. All right, in the video, we see our victim use a two-hand technique to draw, but we probably want to be practicing one-hand draws. Why? Because if I'm holding that bag in my weak hand, and for whatever reason, I don't drop it, I need to be able to clear that cover garment with one hand. All right, so we know that we need to work on that skill. The next thing is that I need to be able to move, and I'm talking about moving with a purpose. Yes, movement is a tactic, but moving with a purpose is really the key. Movement is life, so if I can start moving, I'm going to greatly increase the survivability of my life, but I also need to make sure that I'm moving with a purpose. That could be I'm moving to cover, I'm moving to an exit, maybe I'm moving, aggressing the target. Whatever the case might be, movement is important. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to transition to some live fire work. We're going to work simple to complex. So the first thing we're going to start with is working with this bag here. What I want to do is, instead of carrying the bag in my right hand, I'm going to go ahead and carry the bag in my left hand. Now, what does that allow me to do? Well, that allows me to drop the bag if I have to, or if I'm going to draw from concealment, I'm at least working through a concealed carry draw one-handed. All right, so I want to get accustomed to dropping this. Now, one of the other things that I thought was really interesting was the bag was carried in front of the guy as opposed to being off to the side. Does that have any bearing over your actions post dropping of the bag? Maybe. If I drop it in front and I do need to move forward, maybe I've created a trip hazard. If I drop it off to the side, so in other words, I carry this bag off to the side, that's probably going to be a preferred outcome. All right, so I'm going to work at just dropping the bag, dropping it off to my side. And once I've done that, now I'm free to go ahead and work my draw stroke. So when I talk about a slow, sneaky draw stroke, let's look at the difference between a normal draw stroke, so we have some perspective. So a normal draw stroke, and now let's work more of a sneaky draw stroke, one where I move slowly and then I fire quickly. All right, so I'm going to the gun slow, but then as soon as I get the gun out, I accelerate to get the shots on target. Now, the next thing we're going to work on is let's start doing some work strong hand only. All right, so now, how do I improve my strong hand only technique? Well, here's a couple things. If you watch this video, there's no time for the victim to get into this type of stance or turn his body or do any of these extra things. You're just going to have to come out of the holster and get it on. So I don't want to have any sort of strong hand only technique that deviates from my normal shooting technique. If it deviates from my normal shooting technique, two things. Number one, you're probably not practicing it. And two, if you are practicing it, you have to practice something that's divergent from what you normally do with two hands. So make it easy on yourself. Keep it as simple as you possibly can. So here, I'm going to go ahead and just work my draw stroke now with one hand, and I'm going to fire shots into the target with just one hand. Now, I want to combine shooting strong hand only with that sneaky draw. So I'm going to go ahead and work a nice slow and then accelerate up onto the target and engage the target nice and quick. So again, I'm going to go ahead and work slow and accelerate and engage that target nice and quick. All right, so now, simple to complex, building up to, let's add some movement. All right, so now we're gonna work at adding some movement here. So as I work at adding movement, what I wanna do is I wanna start by going ahead and start working stationary to fire those first couple rounds, then I want to accelerate out. Now in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to want to choose to move as quickly as we can, which means that we need to turn our body in the direction that we want to move. If I try to just retreat in this kind of rear stance movement, two things are going to happen. One, you're probably going to trip and fall because you can't see where you're going. And two, you're probably not going to move as fast as you could if you turn your feet and engage warp drive. All right, so here I'm going to draw, slow draw stroke, and then accelerate for my shooting. And then as soon as I do that, now I'm going to start moving away and continue to return fire. All right, so let's try that one again. All right, so here we go. So I'm going to go nice and slow with my draw stroke, a couple rounds, then I'm going to start to engage the target as I retreat a little bit more aggressively. Ready? All right. Okay, so now that we've done all that, now that we've kind of practiced the simple aspects of this drill, let's go ahead and work to the complex stuff. One of my best friends, Shane, just flew over us right now. Shane, if you're seeing this, good to see you. All right, so let's go ahead and transition to the complex aspects where now we put some targets out and we try to work this together in more of a fluid drill. All right, so now let's take a look at our complex drill. All this means is that it's going to be combining several of these skills into a single drill. All right, so here's what we got. I'm going to be holding this bag in my hand. I'm going to be facing down range. I'm going to, at a time of my choosing, decide that it's now time to drop the bag. Then at that moment, I'm going to go ahead and start to work my sneaky draw. I'm going to go sneaky draw one-handed. I'm going to engage this first target one-handed, static, 2 or 3 rounds probably at the most. Then I'm going to start to immediately retreat. And as I retreat, I'm going to be turning up range and moving aggressively in that direction. I might fire 2 or 3 rounds at this guy, and then I'm going to try to engage that far target. Now, why the far target? Just so that you can see how hard it is to shoot one-handed as you're moving quickly to the rear, right? So it starts to put a little bit of perspective in, oh, that's probably not a good shot. This guy, for sure, that far target, remember, we are responsible for the final resting place of every round we fire, right? So different rules for us. Okay, let's go ahead and get this on. Here we go. All right, so here we go. Drop the bag, sneaky draw. All right, so ideally I want to keep moving back till I get to some form of cover or concealment. All right, so we'll do the drill one more time. I'm going to move back a little bit further, and now I'm going to take advantage of this obstacle right here, which we're going to say is going to simulate the corner of a wall or the corner of a building. All right, so let's go forward and try that out. All right, so again, I've got this bag. I'm holding it in my left hand. We'll start this drill all over again. Here we go. Ready? All right, so simple to complex, observational skill drill of a variety of different scenarios that we hopefully never have to experience, but at least we're putting into our professional development. All right, I'm Jeff Gonzalez. Questions or comments, please post them down below. Until then, take care and stay safe.